Following the Second World War, the formation of the Royal Canadian Naval Air Branch served ships of the Royal Canadian Navy with fixed-wing, jet, and helicopter aircraft in anti-submarine warfare roles. For 23 years, the branch contributed to maritime security of Canada on the sea and in the air. Wearing the uniform of the Royal Naval Air Service, more than 900 Canadians served with the Royal Navy in the First World War, in the early days of flying combat aircraft from carrier ships. The Second World War led to renewed interest in naval aviation, and Canadian recruits were seconded to the Royal Navy's Fleet Air Arm. By late 1943, two British aircraft carriers, Nabob and Puncher, were manned by the Royal Canadian Navy, sailing with Royal Navy Fleet Air Arm squadrons. In August 1944, HMS Nabob was torpedoed while participating in the attack on the German battleship Tirpitz, and being irreparably damaged, was taken out of service, while Puncher sailed until the end of the Second World War. Following the war, in December 1945, the Cabinet under Prime Minister Mackenzie King confirmed retention of a permanent Royal Canadian Naval Air Branch. The first Canadian aircraft carrier was HMCS Warrior, commissioned in 1946 and served by 803 and 825 squadrons, the first official Canadian Naval Air Squadrons, flying Supermarine Seafire and Fairey Firefly aircraft. In 1948, RCAF Station Dartmouth was transferred to the Royal Canadian Navy as their ashore base, to be known as HMCS Shearwater. In 1948, the carrier, HMCS Magnificent, was received and exchanged when Warrior was returned to the Royal Navy. By 1949, the Air Branch was flying 56 aircraft. Aircraft operations moved from the Seafire and Firefly to the more advanced Hawker Sea Fury and Grumman Avenger. In 1951, rotary wing aircraft were introduced to the Navy with 3 Bell helicopters, and in 1952, Sikorsky types were aboard Magnificent in both search and rescue and anti-submarine warfare roles. In 1957, Magnificent was returned to the Royal Navy for a new carrier, HMCS Bonaventure, with an angled landing deck, mirror landing system, the latest catapult technology, carrier approach radar, and carried MacDonnell Banshee jet fighters, providing Canada's first all-weather day-night fighter capability. Along with Sikorsky helicopters, the ship carried Grumman Tracker anti-submarine aircraft built by de Havilland in Canada. With Banshees retired in 1962, Bonaventure became a dedicated anti-submarine warfare carrier, and older helicopters were replaced with Sikorsky Sea King helicopters built in Montreal. Using large helicopters aboard small ships in rough seas required a system that could safely secure the helicopter and reposition it on deck. To this end, the Air Branch Experimental Air Squadron developed the helicopter hull-down and rapid securing system known as the Bear Trap system. Other safety-related innovations were developed specific to ship helicopter operations, including firefighting and fueling systems, deck lighting, and communication systems. In addition to Canada's commitment to NATO and NORAD, naval aviation resources on both the east and west coasts have played a substantial role in search and rescue and have supported civil operations and government departments, with helicopters providing support from ship and shore, proving invaluable in rescue operations. Operating from the Navy's icebreaker, HMCS Labrador, they also provided the lift capability to supply materials to remote Arctic sites during the construction of the distant early warning line, and were used in ice reconnaissance as well as mapping the Canadian Arctic. The Royal Canadian Naval Air Branch contributed to maritime security of Canada throughout the Cold War years. It trained thousands of Canadians in aircraft carrier operations, establishing a high level of performance with sister navies, principally the Royal Navy and the United States Navy. The Royal Canadian Naval Air Branch was disbanded upon unification of Canada's armed forces in 1968 when it became part of Maritime Air Group, a subunit of the Integrated Maritime Command. In 1970, Bonaventure was taken out of service and the tracker fleet became shore-based. although Sea King helicopters continued to fly from destroyer decks. In 1975, Air Command assumed control of Maritime Air Group. Although the era of the Royal Canadian Naval Air Branch had come to an end, air service remained in Canada's Navy and continues to do so. Requirements of naval aviation led to industry growth for the overhaul and modification of aircraft and manufacture of parts. Increases in design and engineering led to conversion and reconfiguration for the Avenger, Tracker, Sea King, and Banshee types. And the manufacture of Navy aircraft spurred Canadian industries in becoming suppliers to the American aircraft industry. Post-war technology related to naval aircraft systems became a leading element in the expansion of Canada's aerospace industry. From 1945 to 1968, the Naval Air Branch contributed to the defense of North America and to NATO force in the Atlantic. In 2010, the Royal Canadian Navy celebrated its 100th anniversary, and air operations at sea with the Royal Canadian Navy continue today. The Royal Canadian Naval Air Branch received the Belt of Orion Award for Excellence from Canada's Aviation Hall of Fame at ceremonies held in Ottawa on June 9, 2016.